A quick look at the complete coffee collection line from the brand of Fragrance World. Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and today I'm going to quickly go over the complete coffee collection line from the brand of Fragrance World. Now, I'm not going to go in this video, I'm not going to go over the full presentation, the bottle design and everything else. I'm going to keep that for a future full-length review video on all of them. But as you can see, bottle-wise, design-wise, they look pretty much identical, apart from some coloration on the juice inside. And in the case of double espresso, as you can see, the bottom part is also sort of on this darker brownish color. Everything else looks pretty much identical. The same can be said about the boxes as well. The first fragrance that I'm going to briefly talk about a little bit more will be double espresso, and I'm starting with this one because to my nose this feels the most simplistic as a scent, and the name of the fragrance actually speaks volumes about the actual scents. All 7 fragrances have a really good atomizers. I want to mention that as well. And double espresso is pretty much what you'll get with this fragrance. You'll get a strong note of the espresso coffee. That's how this smells. It has a bit of a bitterness, very strong espresso vibes, and not much else, to be honest. Maybe just a hint of sweetness somewhere in the background, some benzoin, but it's all about the note of coffee and the note of espresso, to be more precise. And this smells simplistic in a way, maybe a little bit boring, probably. This is the most boring scent out of all of them, but you can enjoy this one if you really like the smell of espresso, or to my nose this also smells like a freshly baked coffee beans. Very realistic on that front, but a little bit boring simply because that's pretty much almost everything that you get out of this one. Again, some benzoin, maybe some resins, and a bit of sweetness somewhere in the background, and that's all I can say about double espresso right now. The next one that I'm going to quickly cover is called Mocha. This one has a little bit more of a character to it compared to double espresso. Again, very good atomizer, something that you get across the whole line. And this one is, first of all, is not as strong on the coffee note. This has a few more notes that actually stick out a little bit. First of all, there's a bit of a spiciness with this fragrance, quite a strong cardamom note. You get that note of coffee as well. Also maybe a hint of greenness somewhere in the background. Definitely some rose, which adds a bit of a freshness and a sort of a floral touch to the whole scent profile. Just a hint of some sweetness, and also the note of cocoa as well. So basically, or cacao. Basically, this is like a slightly more interesting, slightly more complex scent compared to double espresso. It's not so strong on the coffee note. Unlike double espresso, here you get some spiciness, you get some rose, which adds a nice, interesting sort of a floral dimension to the whole scent profile. Some sweetness, and this one feels a little bit lighter in the air. It doesn't feel as thick as double espresso, and probably this one will be for those of you who don't want to smell simply like a freshly baked coffee beans. It's a nice fragrance on its own. The next one is called Irish Coffee. It has the second darkest juice inside the bottle, and this should tell you that this is a little bit more on the darker side, and that's true. It's a lot more complex than double espresso and mocha as well. This is a very boozy coffee based fragrance. Basically the main notes in this one are the notes of coffee and also those boozy notes. There's a whiskey note in here, a rum note as well, maybe some additional added booziness. This also feels a little bit spicy and a little bit peppery in the opening, and then on the dry down this has a strong patchouli note. And if you look up this fragrance from Fragrantica, you'll see that this gets compared to an interesting scent from the brand of Nishane, which is called Patchouli Koja, and definitely I have that one in my collection, and this definitely brings some memories of some vibes of Patchouli Koja. Basically, if you strip the Nishane fragrance from all its leatherness and smokiness and you're left only with the patchouli note, well, this is that patchouli note with some added booziness, quite a bit of booziness, with some coffee note, a bit of greenness, a bit of spiciness and pepperness, and maybe just a hint of sweetness as well. This is quite a lot more complex compared to the previous two, but definitely I would say that this is not sort of a very safe blind buy fragrance because of the complexity that it has. Definitely I would say this is something that you should try before you actually buy. This feels the most complex out of the first three that I have talked about right now, and also this seems to have the strongest performance out of the first three. The next one in line is called Kopi Luwak, and this one, just like Irish coffee, is a little bit more complex, and it's quite an interesting scent actually. Not something that sort of the scent in here is not something that you can easily connect when you hear the coffee collection. This one again having a strong coffee note. The coffee note in here feels similar to what I get out of double espresso, meaning that it feels and smells like a freshly baked coffee beans, but the intensity of the coffee note here is a lot toned down compared to double espresso. Basically, there are three main notes in this fragrance. The first one is that coffee note, that freshly baked coffee bean note. You'll get somewhat of a strong rose note, which feels quite floral and a little bit sweet. And you also get the note of agar oud. So it's an interesting combination of agar oud, rose and coffee. Also in the background I pick up a little bit of sort of an ambery or sugary sweetness out of this fragrance, and again it feels quite complex and quite an interesting exercise on the theme of a coffee based fragrance. Something that surprised me a little bit was the performance with this one. It's not super strong. I would expect usually when I hear the notes of the mix of agar oud and rose, I usually expect something that has a very strong performance. Kopi Luwak is actually more on the moderate side, but definitely this again has a bit of complexity inside the bottle and also has quite an interesting scent profile. Not something that you'll necessarily connect to a coffee based fragrance. The next one in line is called Qahwa. Now Qahwa, as far as I know, is a sort of a type of coffee note that's very popular in the Middle East. Good sprayer once again. And the fragrance itself opens up in a very interesting way. It has a bit of a freshness, I pick up a minty freshness in the opening of this fragrance that's mixed up with a strong cardamom note. So it's quite a fresh and at the same time spicy opening. Also there's definitely that note of coffee which is present throughout the life of this fragrance. Also this fragrance feels very smoky, especially very sort of an incensey after the first few minutes. Initially that smoky note is not very strong, but after a few minutes it starts to gradually pick up sort of on strength. It's also quite woody. There's some cedar wood in this one, and on the dry down there's the note of dates, which adds some this is sort of a fruity, slightly sticky sweetness, and also maybe some ambery sweetness. And it's a very, very interesting fragrance that has quite an interesting transition from a relatively fresh opening to quite an woody and sweet and smoky dry down. Again, if you enjoy the notes of coffee, of cedar wood, of incense and dates, you'll probably end up enjoying Qahwa. This one also seems to have quite a decent performance as well. The next one in line is called Affogato. I think it was one of the newest releases in this coffee collection. And this is probably my second favorite fragrance out of all 7 so far that I've tried. This again feels quite complex, but it also has quite a bit of sweetness. Probably up to this point, this is the sweeter fragrance out of the 6 that I've talked about already. This has some interesting notes. There's some boozy note in here. There's a rum note. You'll get that coffee note, which is not super strong, but it's there. Again, this feels and smells like a freshly baked coffee beans, but with toned down intensity. This has a lot of sweetness. There's an ice cream note, I think, listed on the note breakdown of this one, but definitely can think of this like a vanilla type of ice cream. So there's quite a lot of vanillic sweetness, some tonka beans, some toffee in here. And that's a nice mix between the rum note, which doesn't feel super strong or super boozy. The sweet notes and the coffee note create a very interesting mix. Also there's some cinnamon in here, which adds a bit of spiciness. This is a very soft, very warm, very cozy type of scent that smells really nice both on skin and in the air. and it's done really nicely. It's not overly sweet, so it's not so, you know, sticky sweet. People who don't enjoy you know, that much sweetness in their fragrances probably should check this one out, because again, it's not super sweet. It's very balanced, and I really quite like this, and the whole sweetness is nicely balanced by that boozy note in here and the coffee notes, and this is my second favorite out of the whole line, Affogato. And the last one featured in today's video, the last member of the coffee collection, is called Caramel Macchiato, and this probably is my most favorite one out of the bunch, to be honest. This is also the sweetest fragrance in here. This has a lot more sweetness compared to everything else that I showed you in here. You still get some of that vanillic sweetness, some of ambery sweetness. You get the note of caramel in here, which of course is part of the name of the fragrance. But you also get a bit of a fruity sweetness, plums. I think there's a plum note, a dates note. You get the note of coffee, but it's not like a freshly baked coffee note. It's more like an sort of a cappuccino type of note. So it's very soft. It's not too loud or too strong. And a bit of woodiness. Basically, this is more about the sweet notes rather than the coffee note. The coffee note is just somewhere there in the background, just to try to balance out a little bit of you know, all that sweetness. It's a little bit more on the sweeter side, but I definitely like this one a lot. It feels complex, it feels nice and easy to wear, not overly sweet, despite the fact that it's quite a sweet fragrance. It's not super sticky sweet. So, you know, I really like the way that you know, Caramel Macchiato has actually been done. This one also seems to have probably the best performance out of all. The quality is really nice, and Caramel Macchiato is my most favorite one, and probably ladies out there will enjoy this one the most as well. And so guys, in today's video I tried to take a quick look at the complete coffee collection line from the brand of Fragrance World. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.